Welcome back to another episode of What's Up, Prof?
Hello, Martin. I got you this time.
Hello, Walter. So, how many episodes are we still going to do?
I hopefully only one. Then the Lord comes.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't come, then who knows how many, right?
Yeah, it's up to him.
Yes, it's up to him.
So, how have you been? I have to get that in.
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. Let's open with a word of prayer. Our Heavenly Father, thank you very much for once again bringing us together. Thank you for giving us these opportunities. We can only do this in the strength that you give, so we ask that you enlighten our minds with the Holy Spirit and bless this discussion. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Well, Martin, we've called this one Known Duty, right?
Correct.
It always sounds so ominous. Shall we rather just leave it and go home? What shall we do?
Yeah.
Huh?
If you let the Lord work His will, it's not always in line with your will.
I
So
see.
it makes it a little bit difficult.
The fallen nature doesn't come into line very easily, hey?
No.
No.
And you have to trust the Lord even in the little things and give over the little things to Him. Because on my personal journey, it's always at the small and the little things that it gets difficult.
It's small decisions along the way that become cumulative.
Yeah.
So let's jump into Exodus, because, Martin, the Exodus is salvation in type out of Egypt. Come out of Egypt. He took his people out of Egypt. And we're living in a time where he says, come out of Babylon.
Yes.
So we've gone from a local to a universal. That's what it is,
yes.
right? And if we look at Exodus chapter 4, from verse 18 onwards, the Lord said unto Moses in Midian, Go return into Egypt, for all the men are dead which sought thy life. And Moses took his wife and his sons and set them upon an ass, and he returned to the land of Egypt. And Moses took the rod of God in his hand. Now he'd been in Midian for 40 years, right?
Mm.
And he'd communed with God. He'd written a number of things.
Yeah.
Yes, the book of Job. For sure. And he had a very close walk with God and had a change of mindset. He had 40 years to mellow away his Egyptian roots.
Yeah.
But they were useful to him
Mm-hmm.
because he had all the wisdom of the Egyptians.
Correct.
Now, Martin, that's an important point.
Yeah.
People always say, why do you study these things? It's not necessary to know any of those things.
Yes.
Was it useful to Moses that he understood the mindset of the Egyptians?
I think God put him there, especially to have learned that. Otherwise, he couldn't have done what he did when he got back.
He attended the university there. I don't know, maybe it was the University of Luxor. And he was trained in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. And he was a military man.
Mm-hmm.
So he knew exactly how they go about warfare. Is it important to understand your enemy?
Yes.
You think
It's
so?
very important.
Huh?
If you don't understand your enemy, you won't know what you're up against.
Yeah, in Crete Malta, I discussed the art of war.
Mm.
And if you do not understand the art of war, and you have no idea where the enemy is coming from, then you could be very confused, right?
Correct.
Okay. Do you think that the angels and Jesus were well acquainted with the wiles of the devil?
Yes.
Did they warn Adam and Eve
Yeah.
about his tactics and what he will do and where he will be, and that they shouldn't listen to him?
Definitely. If you read the Spirit of Prophecy, it says that Adam and Eve were in constant communion with the angels and God.
Correct. And if you're standing on the walls of Zion, you're looking out to see what the enemy is going to do, right?
Exactly. What is the watchman's duty?
That's right. So let's just take it from there. And thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, thus says the Lord, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. That means he's the one of prime prominence. He's unique.
Unique.
And I say unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn. So Martin, here's a reference to the 10th plague.
Yeah.
Right from the onset, right?
Yes.
Now that's a pretty dire warning. Did God do it immediately, or did he wait?
No, he waited.
10 plagues, right? They had 9 before they had to suffer that. They had many warning. So nobody can say God was unfair.
No.
And it came to pass by the way in the inn that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. Then Sefora took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet and said, surely a bloody husband art thou to me. So he, that is God, let him go. Then she said, a bloody husband thou art because of the circumcision. Now this verse has caused quite a lot of debate in the world. Was she displaying a fit of rage here? Why did she do it and not he do it?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was really his duty to do it as the husband.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously his other sons had been circumcised. It's not absolutely clear whether they had been before or just previously or whatever, but obviously some people say that Sefora was very anti the circumcision. She probably was, because she didn't fully understand the meaning thereof. But some people think that she's basically cursing her husband here. And it's repeated twice, right? And if you look at the various commentaries, then that is the idea that is put forth.
Yeah. And some people also might get confused on the part that said God sought to kill him.
Correct. Now, nobody really knows in what way God sought to kill him there. Did he appear like the angel of the Lord with his sword ready to kill him? Or was this a more subtle way which they understood? Did he strike him down with a disease? That's a good possibility.
Yes.
So that he was totally helpless and dying.
Yeah.
So he had no way of circumcising his son. So either Sefora did it for him, or Moses would have died. Now, why was God so drastic in his action over here? So if we go and look at the comments on this section, and I always like to go to, sources that had a spiritual connection with God. So either the spirit of prophecy or Wesley or Luther or one of those. Or a pioneer, perhaps. So he let him go. Wesley says, the destroying angel withdrew, but still Sefora cannot forget, but will unreasonably call Moses a bloody husband. So Wesley thought that he was basically in a position where she was very unhappy and basically cussed a little bit.
Yeah.
Because he obliged her to circumcise the child, and upon this occasion, it is probable, he sent them back to his father-in-law, that they might not create him any further uneasiness. When we have any special service to do for God, we should remove that as far from us as we can, which is likely to be our hindrance. Let the dead bury their dead, but follow thou me. It's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
We know that they did return. We don't know the circumstances. Perhaps he's reading a bit much in it. If we go to Ellicott's commentary for English readers, it says, so let him go. God let Moses go, allowed him to recover, accepted Zipporah's act as sufficient, albeit tardy, reparation, and spared the life of her husband. Then she said, when Moses was sufficiently recovered, Zipporah explained to him why she had called him a bloody husband. It was on account of the circumcision, i.e. the two circumcision of Gershom and in Midian, many years previously, and now Eliezer. We learn from Exodus 18:2-3 that Zipporah and her boys were sent back to Jethro by Moses, probably at this time. So he basically agrees with Wesley, right? Moses was in haste, and the child, would have been an inconvenience. Here's Kaufman's commentary. And it came to pass on the way at the lodging place that Jehovah met him and sought to kill him. Then Zipporah took a flint, cut off the foreskin, and she said, a bridegroom of blood art thou, because of the circumcision. So slightly different translation, but basically that's what the word is, a husband, a bridegroom.
Mm-hmm.
This means that Moses became dangerously ill. So he believes that it was not a flaming sword, but a disease.
Yeah. Mm.
And they both understood that there was something wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and they probably discussed it. And maybe Zipporah was a little bit tardy and didn't want to inflict the child with the circumcision. And so God intervened.
Yeah, and this is, if you look at it in this scenario, it's almost similar but different from Job.
Yes.
Because there,
it was the devil.
Yes, and there was there was no reason for him to be sick. Whereas here there is a reason for him to be sick.
Correct. So this is an interesting analogy. It is clear that Zipporah's actions saved his life precisely because it assuaged the anger of God. He let him go. Either Moses was to circumcise the boy, or Zipporah for some other reason took the lead and did it herself. My personal feeling is he wasn't capable, else he would have done it.
Mm.
Right? So he was too sick.
But he was sick because he didn't do it in the first place.
Correct. There was a reason. God met him. God stopped him from doing what he was going to do. He was the one who was to deliver the people. Mm. And there was something that was amiss, and it had to be corrected, right?
Okay.
It is quite obvious that the whole bloody business of circumcision was repugnant to Zipporah. So he also believes that she was against the circumcision. And so she called him a bloody husband, or a bridegroom in blood. Moses' respect for his wife's objections, however, was sinful. God is not a respecter of persons. Special servants must obey as well as perform their special tasks. There are other commentaries that say that she wasn't actually using derogatory language when she was saying, a bloody husband art thou, because the covenant was a covenant in blood. And that is why the circumcision is so important, because it had that symbolism. It had the symbolism of the circumcision of the heart, not only for the individual involved, but for the entire offspring, because the husband is the head of the house, right? And it was a bloody circumcision, which meant that this basic priestly duty of the husband in the house was for the whole family.
Yeah.
So now you are a husband in blood to me. In other words, we are bound in the covenant. You could read it like that.
Yeah.
Then it's not a cussing. So whether it was the one or the other, I prefer the second, because it's not quite so drastic, right?
Yes, and the outcome afterwards
is the same,
or even better, because there's no hard feelings.
Correct.
Afterwards.
Correct. So she wasn't cussing. She was saying Now we have fulfilled the duty, and you have become a husband of blood to me because of the circumcision. Basically, that is saying because of the covenant.
Yeah.
All right? So in other words, she submitted to it. Although she was reticent, she submitted because she realized it was an essential component of their religion.
Correct.
Okay, let's continue. Exodus 4:27 to 31. And the Lord said to Aaron, go into the wilderness to meet Moses. And he went and met him in the mount of God and kissed him. So it's important, Martin, that God was speaking to both sides. Basically, you can say speaking to both sides to the heart.
Yes.
The one has a commission to go and do something in particular, and the other one had to be cooperative.
Correct.
So both sides need an information, right? And Moses told Aaron all the words of the Lord who had sent him and all the signs which he had commanded him. And Moses and Aaron went and gathered together all the elders of the children of Israel. And Aaron spoke all the words which the Lord had spoken unto Moses, and did the signs in the sight of the people, and the people believed. Whew. That's a very nice statement, right?
Yes.
And when they heard that the Lord had visited the children of Israel, and that he had looked upon their affliction, then they bowed their heads and worshipped. All right, Martin, so we have another little snippet here. Two sides. One has a message from God. The other one is willing to cooperate, and the people believed, and they worshipped.
Exactly.
That's the way it should be.
Should be, yes.
Did it stay like that?
Unfortunately, no.
No, it didn't stay like that. The intention was good, but the flesh was weak.
Correct.
Do we have a lesson in that?
A very, very deep lesson.
All right. So, Martin, somebody must have told you this is what the Lord wants. Right?
Yes.
And you met that someone in a spiritual sense, checked it out for yourself, came to the conclusion it is so, and at some stage you believed.
Correct.
And then you said, you'll worship this God.
Yes.
And then later did you say, all that you have said I will do?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's go to the spirit of prophecy. That's another source that we can rely on. With his wife and children, Moses set forth on the journey, and on the way from Midian, Moses received a startling and terrible warning of the Lord's displeasure. An angel appeared to him in a threatening manner, as if he would immediately destroy him. No explanation was given, but Moses remembered that he had disregarded one of God's requirements. Yielding to the persuasion of his wife, he had neglected to perform the rite of circumcision upon their youngest son. So we can be pretty sure that some of the commentaries actually got something right?
Yes. But he didn't get sick.
It doesn't say that he didn't get sick.
Oh, it is true. The angel could also have been there to make him sick.
Correct. You don't know.
No.
So it's possible that he became incapacitated.
Yes.
With whatever ailment it was. And it was so sudden that he knew there was something that God was telling him. He didn't even have to say it. He knew it. Obviously, they had argued about it.
Correct.
He had failed to comply with the condition by which his child could be entitled to the blessings of God's covenant with Israel. I like that because it supports the idea you are a covenant of blood. You are a husband of blood to me.
Yeah.
Zipporah, fearing that her husband would be slain, performed the rite herself, and the angel then permitted Moses to pursue his journey. In his mission to Pharaoh, Moses was to be placed in a position of great peril. His life could be preserved only through the protection of holy angels. But while living in neglect of a known duty, he would not be secure, for he could not be shielded by the angels of God.
Yeah.
Now, Martin, did we choose this arbitrarily, or do you think there is a typology in this that we should take note of?
Directly. There's a direct typology to every person on the planet.
Okay, so what was he doing? He was on the way to Pharaoh.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Pharaoh is a type of Satan,
Yes.
and he's going to meet him head on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as we approach the end of time, are we going to meet an enemy head on?
Yes.
And his representatives?
Correct.
It's going to be head on, right?
The ship is gonna hit Malta.
Okay. All right. Now, Martin, what if we are in neglect of a known duty? Can the angels of God shield us?
No.
So, is it very important that we have some introspection?
Definitely. If you want to be under the protection, you have to perform your duty.
You have to perform your duty. All right. Now, who had received the instructions as to what the duty was?
Moses.
Moses.
Mm.
Moses had been called to call the people out of Egypt, right?
Yes.
Is there an antitypical Moses that was instructed by God to give all the information that the people in the end time would need to call them out of antitypical Babylon?
Yes. There's an antitypical Moses that have to give the duty to the people.
Correct. All right. Is that duty paramount? Is it important?
Yes, you can see
Absolutely.
how important it was in Moses' time.
One little neglect of a known duty, and death would be the consequence.
Correct.
Okay. Now, Aaron, being instructed by angels, went forth to meet his brother. Now, when we read that, people have ideas where they literalize this to the sense that, he's sitting there and the angel is sitting next to him and instructing him. No. Through the Spirit, through your thinking, through your words, this is how it operates.
They're still doing the same today.
Absolutely.
Every single person that studies the Bible gets instructions from angels.
Absolutely. So when you're sitting there and you're studying your Bible, you say a prayer.
Yes.
You say, Lord, I really, really want to understand what you are saying. What is your will? Angels of God will enlighten you.
Yes. Along with the Holy Spirit.
And the Holy Spirit working inside will bring this to the fore. So it says they'd been instructed by angels and went forth to meet his brother, from whom he had been so long separated, and they met amid the desert solitudes near Horeb. Together they journeyed to Egypt, and having reached the land of Goshen, they proceeded to assemble the elders of Israel. So here's a question. Martin, is God gathering his people for a confrontation with Pharaoh? We've already answered it, right?
Yep, definitely.
We're on our way.
Mm-hmm.
How do these words affect us? What if we live in neglect of a known duty, such as health reform? So God has given his people a message saying, let's put it bluntly, Martin, if you want to be able to stand in this spiritual war, in this conflict of interests, in this clash of minds,
Exactly.
I want you to have a clear mind.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, I'm going to, in my mercy, give you very specific instructions as to what is right and what is wrong. Good. And I want you to do it. And you say, no, I don't want to. Or your zipperer says, no way am I doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, well, for the sake of peace in the home, I'm going to listen to zipperer.
Mm-hmm.
Could you have a problem?
I think most definitely you're going to have a problem.
You're going to have a problem, right? Okay.
And sorry, just to make it clear, you're going to have a problem with God.
Yes.
Not between you and Sefora.
Who stopped him there?
God did.
Yes. The one translation said Jehovah stopped him there, right? This branch of the Lord's work has not received due attention, and through this neglect much has been lost. If the church would manifest a greater interest in the reforms through which God himself is seeking to fit them for his coming, their influence would be far greater than it is now. Martin, I want you to think about this. Moses was on his way to a conflict of interest. It seems to me sometimes that the church is more on Pharaoh's side than it is on God's side in many of the issues that we confront.
Yes.
Or confronted with in our time. I don't know, does that sound a bit harsh
Definitely.
to you?
That doesn't seem to me that there's any conflict going on at all.
It does looks like conformity rather than conflict, right?
And if, like you said earlier, that confrontation is with Pharaoh. So at this stage, there's more...
confrontation with Moses?
Yeah, correct. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the spirit of prophecy is set aside. When we spoke last time about drugs, right?
Yeah.
Drugs should not be introduced into the human body. That's an instruction to an antitypical Moses.
Yeah.
And our modern medical fraternity, in our own ranks, is saying that was for then. It doesn't apply today. The drugs are better than they were then.
Correct.
But we had this Nobel Prize winner saying if you continue to take that stuff with the skull and the crossbones on it, it's going to kill you.
Exactly.
And you can take a very simple medication. Take something like, paracetamol, which is basically in a little tablet that you can even give to kids, right? What if you take 10 of those at a time? Can it cause cirrhosis of the liver?
Yes, big problems.
Can it cause other diseases and destroy your system? So even there, you will get a long list of what they can do, right? Okay. So Martin, if you take the natural products, then the chances of overdosing are very low, right? Of course, even good food can make you gag if you eat too much of it.
Correct.
So everything is in moderation. Everything has to be dealt with in temperance. But this issue is very, very important. So we are on our way. We are heading for a clash with Pharaoh. So let's continue to read. Although the health reform is not the third angel's message, it is closely connected with it. Those who proclaim the message should teach health reform also. It is a subject that we must understand in order to be prepared for the events that are close upon us, and it should have a prominent place. Now, Martin, I am saddened by the fact that this church of ours was in the forefront. It was the head when it came to health reform.
Yes.
It shook the entire world. It changed the whole dietary system of the entire world.
Correct. It was completely opposite to the other medical news that was
It was the
prevalent.
exact opposite. And the entire breakfast industry that is now in the world is as a consequence of this church. Right?
Correct.
We still have the name, Kellogg, all those products, Wheat Bix, alternatives such as Marmite, peanut butter, soy milk, all of these issues. There is nobody that is not affected by the health message that went out from the pioneers of this church. Correct?
Correct.
And our institutes were to be a model of God's way.
Yeah.
And we had sanitariums and hospitals, and they produced a product which was totally different to that of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Health reform was practiced, natural healing methods, diet, sunlight, exercise,
Yes.
a plant-based diet, no meat on the table at any of our sanitariums. Drugs were to be avoided at all costs. The intelligent use of water in the curing of people. Fermentations. Fever was to be treated with the intelligent use of water, etc., etc., etc. Has there been a swing from that to the side of the world?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes.
So when the Institute used to be drug-free, today it is not much different from the world. In fact, it is so much the same that you can even form alliances.
Yep. With Pharaoh.
With Pharaoh.
Mm-hmm.
And bury the message.
Correct.
That is a very, very sad state of affairs. Satan and his angels are seeking to hinder the work of reform and will do all they can to perplex and burden those who heartily engage in it. You know, Martin, when we try to raise up, I'm not talking about us now as we, but as a people, institutes of health, and do they get the greatest support from everywhere, or do they get tremendous opposition?
Tremendous opposition.
Martin, is this a known duty that is being neglected?
Yes.
How are we going to face Pharaoh, and how are the angels going to protect us if we continue along this road?
No, if you continue on it, you're not going to make it. You're not going to be able to stand against Pharaoh, and God will not allow it.
Are you being very harsh, Martin?
Yes. But
I think you must calm down.
I'm very passionate about it because it's really something that can change the body of Christ.
All right, let me ask you a question. You're a relatively new man in this walk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you experience opposition from without? Let's say within your circle of friends from the past, or your family, or whatever. Do you experience opposition on this point?
Yes.
All right, let me ask you a terrible question. Do you experience opposition within the church on this point?
Yes. Unfortunately, yes.
So is Satan busy?
He's not only busy, he's succeeding.
He's succeeding. He's obliterating the message.
Correct.
And sometimes people struggle and they put up a health reform system and they get nothing but criticism, to the point where they have to pack up and leave at the end. Isn't it a shame that something like this should happen in the time that we are living in, when we are right before a confrontation with Pharaoh?
And we are in a crisis of health.
Yes. And where are we running to? Are we running to Pharaoh for help, or are we running to God?
100% running to Pharaoh.
We're running to Pharaoh, absolutely. Testimonies to the Church, Volume 1, page 516. The health reform is a branch of the special work of God for the benefit of His people. I saw that in an institution established among us, the greatest danger would be its managers departing from the spirit of present truth and from that simplicity which should ever characterize the disciples of Christ. When Hezekiah was dying, the prophet got an instruction to make a poultice of fig leaves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the medical fraternity called it quackery.
Correct.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But he got better.
Yes.
Whereas before he was dying.
Exactly.
Who's in control of your health, Martin?
Yourself and God.
I see. So God is the one who is the author of health, and you are the one who's supposed to comply to his will.
That's it. You make the decision, and if you make the right one, God can help.
Correct. A warning was given me against lowering the standards of truth in any way in such an institution in order to help the feelings of unbelievers and thus secure their patronage. The great object of receiving unbelievers into the institution is to lead them to embrace the truth. Now, Martin, if we have organizations that are supposed to help people, let's not use any names here, and the instruction is that we will keep it strictly secular.
Yes.
Is that fulfilling God's purpose?
Absolutely not.
No, the purpose is to bring them to the truth.
Exactly.
How do you bring people to the truth without speaking truth and demonstrating truth, right?
Correct.
Or do we just want to have accolades from the world?
We just want to be accepted.
If the standard be lowered, they will get the impression that the truth is of little importance, and they will go away in a state of mind harder of access than before. But the greatest evil resulting from such a course would be its influence upon the poor, afflicted, believing patients, who would affect the cause generally. They have been taught to trust in the prayer of faith, and many of them are bowed down in spirit because prayer is not now more fully answered. I saw that the reason why God did not hear the prayers of his servants for the sick amongst us more fully was that he could not be glorified in so doing while they were violating the laws of health. A known duty.
Yes. And I believe we are seeing it today still.
I believe we are seeing it more than ever.
We're asking for God for prayers to heal our sick.
Yes.
But we are neglecting our known duty.
And because we are not seeing the results that we hoped for, we run to Pharaoh.
Yes.
And we ask for his help.
And the worst is, then we say that the potion that Pharaoh gives
is better.
Is from God.
Now imagine, Martin, if the potion that has been developed by Pharaoh's priests is attributed to God. Would that be a shocking thing?
Yes, it's a sad state of affairs.
All right. Now, let's read a little bit more. This comes from the Spirit of Prophecy, Volume 4. I like those old books because a spade is called a shovel.
Yeah.
You know exactly what you're working with. The sanctification set forth in the Scriptures embraces the entire being, spirit, soul, and body. Paul prayed for the Thessalonians that their whole spirit and soul and body be preserved blameless unto the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. Again he writes to the believers, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, quoting Romans 12 verse 1. The Jews were commanded to offer in sacrifice to God only such animals as were free from disease or blemish. So Christians are required to preserve all their powers in the best possible condition for the Lord's service, says Peter. Abstain from fleshly lusts, which war against the soul, 1 Peter 2:11. The word of God will make but a feeble impression upon those whose faculties are benumbed by any sinful gratification. The heart cannot preserve consecration to God while the animal appetites and passions are indulged at the expense of health and life. Paul writes to the Corinthians, let us cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God, 2 Corinthians 7:1. And with the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, he classes temperance. Health reform has been given not as a curse, but as a gift.
Exactly. It's like the fourth commandment. Everybody wants to make it a curse.
Now, Martin, I was a carnivore, right?
Mm.
I've always said that. Chicken was a vegetable. I was a carnivore through and through. Do you think it was easy to say, oh, okay, all right, let's try this thing? You think it was easy?
I was exactly the same. And I can promise you it wasn't easy. But it was easy when you do it not alone, when you do it with God.
All right. And now that you have done it, when you started, did you get opposition?
Yes.
Do you still get opposition?
Yes.
Every single day, right?
Mm-hmm.
But once you actually did it, did you feel the benefits?
Definitely.
And once you got into the groove,
Mm-hmm.
were you any worse off than you were before?
No, much better off.
Ah,
And for me personally, I can never go back. Because I cannot even think of going back.
you're on a better road.
Yes, and it's actually amazing sometimes to me that people that argue with you will tell you, no, you're worse off.
You're worse off, yes.
But they don't sit on this side of the fence of it.
Exactly. You know, Wesley, when he was speaking about music, he was a great composer and he loved music and he brought, wonderful music into the church. I mean, 1,000 hymns or more. I don't know how many he wrote, but it was amazing. He and his brother. And one of his complaints was, why should the devil have all the best music?
Mm.
Right? In the same way, people think that the devil has the best diet and God's people are deprived.
That's true.
And he's got you so convinced that when you switch over, you're thinking, nothing but this manna.
Yeah. And they have so twisted it that now the one that's actually from the devil is being portrayed as that is from God.
Correct. Now, Martin, it's an absolutely amazing thing. I concur with you. There's no way I could go back. In fact, the way that it was is repugnant to me. I don't know what changed. I certainly didn't do it. So somebody must have changed it.
Can I ask you a question before you go on?
Yes.
How long did it take Moses to get rid of that mindset of Pharaoh and Egypt?
40 years.
So when you were in that type of diet and you had to change, it also takes some time to cleanse and get
Correct.
all of that out.
And the interesting thing is, I got steeped into this research. Because once I started realizing the benefits and I saw the opposition out there, in fact, I had more support from the outside, particularly amongst the New Age world, than from within our own ranks.
Mm.
And this is a very sad state of affairs.
But
and it is to this day still like it.
Correct. If we go back to the previous quote, is Satan busy?
He is very busy. She writes here to these people, I'm glad that you are able to help the believers in Norfolk Island. Tell them that health reform is necessary to a pure, clean breath and pure, clean current of blood. Tea, coffee, port, and tobacco defile the users. The Lord calls upon all who claim to believe His truth to take their stand firmly upon Bible ground in regard to health reform. There is to be a marked difference between those who serve God and those who serve themselves. Now, you take that little word tea and coffee over there. All right, most people that are believers will agree that tobacco is surely detrimental. Mm. But when it comes to tea and coffee, surely not. Now, I gave a lecture some time ago called Path of Obedience, where I showed that it was Pharaoh's agents,
Correct.
His priests, that introduced coffee, that introduced tea, that introduced narcotics into the world, opium, and all of these, cocaine, and started the mega industries which used those products, and cocoa, and defiled humanity with it.
Chocolate.
All of it came from Pharaoh's agents, particularly his priests, the Jesuit order.
That's it.
Now, Martin, we have whole churches that seem to think it's fine to do these things. and they have coffee displayed everywhere and tea, and they think it's perfectly fine. There's a very clear admonition against this kind of thing.
And what's also sometimes sad to me is you'll get the message that, but it's only coming from the spirit of prophecy. If you read this correct, it says there, do your Bible study to get to realize that this is the way it should be.
No, not only that, the world will tell you so. They did that scan, that brain scan, and showed that just one cup of coffee cuts the blood supply to your brain by 40%.
Correct.
Martin, do you want to have 40% less cognitive function? You might have a high, but you are certainly going to be followed by a low.
Yes. We actually showed that video in a previous WhatsApp Prof, Guidelines for the Discernment.
Correct. So now when we come to the plagues of Egypt, there are another few points. Basically what we're doing is we're looking at the progression. One neglect of one known duty, and he couldn't face Pharaoh.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Moses and Aaron were God's representatives to a bold, defiant king and to impenitent priests hardened in rebellion who had allied themselves to evil angels. We're facing exactly the same situation today. We have impenitent priests hardened in rebellions who have allied themselves to evil angels.
Correct.
You can see it by what they're preaching in terms of denigrating every norm that you have in the Word of God. Right? Pharaoh and the great men of Egypt were not ignorant in regard to the wise government of God, because they had a history. They had Joseph there. We don't have to read it all. So, in other words, many were placed in important positions, and these were witnesses for God. There were people there that knew some of these truths. Satan well knew that Moses was chosen of God to break the yoke of bondage upon the children of Israel, and he consulted with his angels how to accomplish a work which should answer a twofold purpose. Number one, to destroy the influence of the work wrought by God through his servants Moses by working through his agents and thus counterfeiting the true work of God. So whenever you confront Pharaoh, you are going to confront a counterfeit.
Yeah.
So if you have a health message, there will be a counterfeit message.
Mm-hmm.
Which one do you want to run with, Martin?
Definitely with the one from God.
Okay. Secondly, to exert an influence by his work through the magicians, which would reach down through all ages and destroy in the minds of many true faith in the mighty miracles and works to be performed by Christ when he should come to this world. So there will be magicians. There will be magicians in the church. And do you think there might be magicians with white coats as well?
Yes, definitely.
The king demanded a miracle in evidence of their divine commission. Everybody wants a miracle. So Aaron took a rod and cast it down before Pharaoh, and it became a serpent. And the monarch said unto his wise men and unto his sorcerers. It's interesting that it's called by its name. Sorcery, witchcraft, pharmacia, who cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents, but Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. The magicians did not really cause their rods to become serpents, but by magic, aided by the great deceiver, they were able to produce this appearance. It was beyond the power of Satan to change the rods to living serpents. The prince of evil, though possessing all the wisdom and might of an angel fallen, has not power to create or to give life. This is the prerogative of God alone. So when it comes to disease, whose prerogative alone is it to give life?
God's.
Okay. The serpent that Aaron produced by throwing down his rod was a true serpent because it swallowed up the others.
Yes.
But it wasn't enough evidence for Pharaoh, right?
No.
Thus Satan's counterfeit accomplished its purpose of emboldening the Egyptians in their rebellion and causing Pharaoh to harden his heart against conviction. Satan hoped also to shake the faith of Moses and Aaron in the divine origin of their mission. The only result was to prepare the way for greater exhibitions of divine power and glory, and to make more apparent both to the Israelites and to all Egypt the existence and sovereignty of a true and living God. Martin, we are currently in a clash of minds.
Yes.
There are two sides to the story in the world today, and people have to make decisions, right? Do you think the issue could escalate and the conflict could become even greater in the future?
Yes, I think we're on our way.
It's definitely going to do that.
Definitely.
And anybody who denies it. Now, I want you to think about this. As the conflict escalated, did Pharaoh's heart soften, or was it even more hardened?
More hardened.
So, Martin, if we're not on the right side of the decision now, the conflict is going to get worse and worse and worse. Are we going to jump sides from Pharaoh to the other side? Are we going to say, wow, look at the magicians and the pharmacia that he is bringing forth, I'm going to jump to Pharaoh's side? Could it have happened here?
Yes, I think it did.
Sick people who take drugs do appear to get well. With some there is sufficient life force for nature to draw upon, to so far expel the poison from the system that the sick, having a period of rest, recover. But no credit should be allowed the drugs taken, for they only hindered nature in their efforts. All the credit should be ascribed to nature's restorative powers. God built those powers into the system. Now, when I started health reform and I kicked out the bad habits, I got incredibly sick.
Yes.
Because for the first time ever, my body had an opportunity to throw out toxins.
Correct.
My whole skin came off my back. I was as sick as a dog.
But did you get accused there that it was your diet's fault?
Absolutely. All the time. And I lost all that weight.
Oh, now you became sickly.
Now I was in a very poor state, and people were saying, well, it serves you right? You want to change that your diet. And then when I went through what you call that healing crisis and came out the other side, I started to pick up weight again. My strength increased. And I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I can still move things around, and I can still pick you up if I have to.
Yeah.
But it's just amazing. You know, there was this one man, he was well in his 80s, and he climbed the mountain every day. He had a mountain behind him, and that was his exercise. And when he was 86, he went to the doctor, and he said to the doctor, "Doctor, I'm struggling a little more these days to get up this mountain than I did 5 years ago." And the doctor said, "It's your diet." He was 86 years old.
Exactly. He's been on the diet for probably 40 years.
The average lifespan of a doctor is probably around 56.
Yeah.
So, you know, I doubt whether the doctor would have still been going up the mountain at that pace. So this just tells you what the mindset of the people are.
Yeah. Just for interest's sake, how long have you been on this diet?
33 years.
33 years. Well, here's a 33-year example.
Well, you know, it's not that you don't get sick. You get sick.
Yeah.
And it's not that you don't have ailments. You do have ailments. But you can power through them without drugs.
And the thing is, the whole point is, like we've been reading, it's not only for your health. It's for your clarity of mind.
That is the most important thing of all. All right, let's read manuscripts 49. In our sanitariums, we advocate the use of simple remedies. We discourage the use of drugs, for they poison the current of the blood. In these institutions, sensible instructions should be given: how to eat, how to drink, how to dress, how to live so that the health may be preserved. You know, Martin, even dress. If for the sake of fashion, in the midst of winter, you're going to wear flimsy clothes to show off whatever asset you believe should be shown to the world, it's stupidity. Nothing short of stupidity, and it has a role to play in health.
Correct.
Bacteria love to thrive at a lower temperature than core body temperature. And because your lung is normally at a lower temperature because there's evaporation and you're constantly breathing in and breathing out, the first organ that is likely to be attacked is the lung. But if you are very cold and your extremities are cold, you are actually a breeding ground for pathogens. So keep your temperature and your core temperature right. Keep your clothing so that it fits the occasion. And these are all important things. So it's how to eat, how to drink, how to dress in order to preserve life. All right, so here's another quote on how to live. When she talks about drugs, she says, the disease which the drug was given to cure may disappear, but only to reappear in skin diseases, ulcers, painful, diseased joints, and sometimes in a more dangerous and deadly form. You know, Martin, I was giving lectures in Germany on health issues, and there was a lady in a wheelchair. She was well into her 80s and in an old age home, and they'd brought her to the lectures. She changed her lifestyle. She was well in her 80s, and when I returned later to the same country, was Germany, 4 years later, she walked up to the stage and said she's gone back into her apartment. She's out of the old age home. Her fingers were still skew from the arthritis, but all the pain was gone, and she could again use her limbs properly. It is amazing what happens when you change your lifestyle.
The church has got some institutions in South Africa. And the stories, because we were quite involved with one of them, that you see people go in and how they are there for 10 days, and the recovery is absolutely astounding.
Correct. Now, in those plagues, Martin, in the 7th plague, as predicted, there was thunder and hail and fire mingled with it, destroying every herb, shattering trees, etc., etc. It was the destroying angel. So sometimes it could be possible that angels, destroying angels, are giving messages to mankind, and they are attributing it to something else, right? Climate change or whatever. And then there are statements in the patriarchs and prophets and in the spirit of prophecy about what happened on that fateful night when the firstborn were killed. They had very specific instructions. They had to sacrifice this lamb, and they had to put the blood on the doorposts and on the lintel. And in the same way, we have to put the blood of the lamb on the doorposts and on the lintels of our hearts, right?
And just on a side note here, they had to eat the whole lamb.
Yes, that's why the whole clan came to bed together, and it was done with bitter herbs.
It wasn't
a tasty morsel.
Yeah, or instruction as to a dietary.
No, it was a typological issue.
Exactly.
And so they all had a small portion of it. And then at midnight, the destroying angel went and he destroyed the firstborn. Now that warning had gone out right from the beginning. Moses already knew that the firstborn were going to die. But he first started with all the other things, the water turned to blood, etc., etc., etc. Now, the important thing that we need to know is that Christ was the invisible leader of Israel. In the book, The Truth About Angels, we read, in Egypt, the report was spread that the children of Israel were passing on towards the Red Sea. Pharaoh collected his forces, attended by the great men of his realm, headed the attacking army. Now, it's fascinating, Martin, that when he was attacking God's people, he took the people with him, not only the army, not only the military. The priests were in it. It was a coalition of church, state, and the people.
Yes.
So there was a collective mindset, a Babylonian collective mindset. Let's rid the planet of our enemy.
Mm-hmm.
So the Hebrews were encamped beside the sea. Suddenly they beheld in the distance the flashing armor and moving chariots betokening the advance of the great army. Terror filled the hearts of Israel. Some cried unto the Lord, but the far greater part hastened to Moses with their complaints. Are we going to have a similar experience?
Definitely.
Are the people going to say, the fanatics amongst you are the ones to blame for this calamity?
Yep.
Is it already happening?
Already happening.
Okay. That's very interesting. His calm and assuring reply to the people was, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. The wonderful pillar of cloud had been followed as the signal of God to go forward. But now they questioned amongst themselves if it might not foreshadow some great calamity. For had it not led them on the wrong side of the mountain into an impassable way? Thus the angel of God appeared to their deluded minds as the harbinger of disaster. Martin, when it comes to this final clash, it will appear as if God's people are surrounded and there is no way out.
Yes.
And many will shout that we've been led in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And a decree will go out, kill them.
Correct.
And you will, if you don't have faith, and if you haven't followed known duty,
Yes.
how will the angels protect you?
You cannot, because you'll have a deluded mind.
Correct. So Martin, here the people of God are murmuring and muttering, and they haven't even crossed the Red Sea yet, right?
Mm.
And they're saying, have we been led in the wrong direction?
Yeah. Have we been led in here to die?
Yes. Have we received misinformation from God?
Mm-hmm.
Some people go so far as to say, as we've already stated, that Pharaoh's magicians are the ones that we should follow because God, realizing how brilliant they were, gave them all the expertise to give us the drugs to take us through.
Mm.
Right?
Yes.
So that's how confused you can become.
Exactly.
But then they crossed the Red Sea, and they still had a lot of Egyptian in them.
Mm-hmm.
And now comes the tricky part. God is trying to educate them to leave Egypt behind.
Yes.
They had a constant tendency to go back to Egypt.
Yes.
Right?
They were longing for Egypt.
They longed for the coffee stalls and the cocoa that they had in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
And the flesh pots of Egypt. They were so delightful, right? And all the perverted foods. And now they were put on a different diet. Oh. So let's read what happened from then onwards, because this is very important for our time. Exodus chapter 16, verse 7 to 15. And in the morning, then you shall see the glory of the Lord, for that he heareth your murmurings against the Lord. And what are we that you murmur against us? And Moses said, this shall be when the Lord shall give you in the evening flesh to eat. They were muttering because they didn't get any flesh food. And in the morning bread to the full, for that the Lord heareth your murmurings which you murmur against him. And what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against the Lord. So Martin, they wanted the flesh pots of Egypt, and they were murmuring against Moses. Antitypically, the people want the flesh pots of Egypt and the coffee bars, and they're murmuring against the spirit of prophecy.
That's it.
Same thing, right? And Moses spoke unto Aaron, say unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, come near before the Lord, for he has heard your murmurings. And it came to pass, as Aaron spoke unto the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked towards the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel. Speak unto them, saying, At even you shall have flesh, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread, and you shall know that I am the Lord your God. Let's stop there.
Mm-hmm.
Did God do the same thing with his antitypical people?
Yes.
He said to them, meat eating is not a test of fellowship.
Correct.
But if you continue in that way,
Mm-hmm.
you will lose your discernment,
Mm-hmm.
and you will be deprived of a blessing that could have been yours.
Correct.
All right? Same thing.
Yes.
So he was obliging.
Exactly.
He tolerated it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say throw them away. It's not a test of fellowship. Okay.
It's just interesting to me, if I read here, the flesh didn't fill them.
It only filled their craving.
Yes. The morning, the bread, they were filled.
Because the bread is the word, right? That became flesh. All right. And it came to pass that in the even the quails came up, covered the camp, and in the morning the dew lay around about the host. And when the dew that lay was gone up, behold, upon the face of the wilderness there lay a small round thing, as small as the hoarfrost on the ground. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said one to another, It is manna, for they wist not what it was. Actually, that means, what's it?
Mm-hmm.
And Moses said unto them, This is the bread which the Lord has given you to eat. So there was something that was good for them, and something that was bad for them that he permitted.
Yes.
They were complaining against the bad or against the good?
The good.
Nothing but this manna.
Mm.
This manna.
And this was the first time.
Yes. So, antitypically,
Mm.
we're talking typology, right? Oh. The Lord in his mercy permitted the children of Israel that had come out of Egypt to partake in their craving.
Mm.
He discouraged it. He told them they are murmuring against God, but he permitted it. Do we have an analogy?
Yes.
Yes. God's people are permitted, and therefore they think it's okay.
Mm.
And they will even tell you that it's okay
Exactly.
in a most vociferous manner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But let's continue down the line. We're coming closer to Canaan.
Correct.
Exodus 16:35. And the children of Israel did eat manna 40 years, until they came to a land inhabited. They did eat manna, until they came unto the borders of the land of Canaan. It's absolutely essential that we eat the manna.
Correct.
We have to internalize the character of Christ. But there's also a health reform message here.
Yes.
It's part of his character.
Yes.
Numbers 11:18-20. And say thou unto the people, Sanctify yourselves against tomorrow, and ye shall eat flesh. Now, Martin, this is interesting.
Yeah.
They were permitted to eat flesh, right? And now comes the second time when they are murmuring and craving flesh.
Mm.
And the first thing he says, sanctify yourselves. In other words, what he is saying to the people, Martin, is think very carefully and consult the word to see whether you are on a right path or not.
Mm-hmm.
Sanctify yourselves. And those that did sanctify themselves did not crave the flesh, right? Tomorrow you shall eat flesh, for ye have wept in the ears of the Lord, saying, Who shall give us flesh to eat? For it was well with us in Egypt. Therefore the Lord will give you flesh, and ye shall eat. Ye shall not eat 1 day, nor 2 days, nor 5 days, neither 10 days, nor 20 days, but even a whole month, until it come out of your nostrils and it be loathsome to you. Is God for it or against it?
Well, it definitely doesn't seem like he's actually telling you, fine, you wanted it, now get it.
All right. Now, Martin, if you actually do it, aren't you defiant?
Yes.
Okay. Because that you have despised the Lord, which is amongst you, and have wept before him, saying, Why came we forth out of Egypt? That's pretty plain, right?
He's actually saddened by this.
He's saddened. So let's go to Numbers 21 verse 5. And the people spoke against God and against Moses. Wherefore have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, neither is there any water, and our soul loatheth this light bread. That's an interesting statement. It wasn't heavy on the stomach. You know what's interesting, Martin? People confuse satiety with good nutrition. People say, this doesn't satisfy me. It doesn't give me satiety. Now, what is satiety, Martin? It's a stomach that doesn't empty. It stays full. Now, this is very important. If you eat good food, it goes into your stomach, goes out of your stomach, and goes into your blood.
Yes.
Right? And you have the energy to run with it. So if you have a breakfast of grains and nuts, seeds and fruits, it doesn't take very long to digest, and it goes out into your system. If you have a breakfast of bacon and eggs and portions of meat, it gives you satiety.
It stays in you.
It's satisfying. It's not light food.
Correct. It's satisfying, but it stays in the...
It stays in the stomach. So does it go into your tissues to provide you with energy?
Takes much longer, much more energy out of your whole system to do that.
Correct. So if you want to run a marathon, are you going to have a breakfast of bacon and eggs and chops? Or are you going to have a breakfast of fruits and cereals and things like that?
Well, it's amazing. You're going to have the bacon, the cereal and that.
And bananas and things like that. So who's more likely to win the marathon?
Yeah, the guy that eats the plant-based.
Correct.
To get it into
but
his
people
system.
love satiety. Yeah. Now, one of the foods that provides great satiety is cheese. Because it takes hours and hours and hours to digest. If you eat fruits and grains, they're out of your stomach within 2 to 3 hours.
Yes.
In other words, they're supplying your energy to your body, and you can run with it. You add cheese to the mix, it can stay in your stomach for 10 hours. That means that food energy is not available to you.
No.
But you feel satisfied.
You feel satisfied, yeah.
This stuff doesn't satisfy me. Nothing but this light food. The same arguments are being brought today as they were as verily in those days. We're living in the same times. But now our soul is dried away, and there is nothing at all besides this manna before our eyes. So God said to them, go for it. Eat your stuff and see how well you are.
Yeah.
Martin, is there an antitype coming? Let's read. Numbers 18:31 to 35. And there went forth a wind from the Lord and brought quails from the sea and let them fall by the camp, as it were a day's journey on this side, and as it were a day's journey on the other side, round about the camp, and as it were 2 cubits high upon the face of the earth. This is amazing. And the people stood up all that day and all that night and all that next day, and they gathered the quails. He had gathered 10 homers. That's a whole bathful. And they spread them all abroad for themselves around about the camp. And they were so gluttonous that they even ate it before it was fully cooked.
Yes, they ate it while it was still medium rare.
Correct. And while the flesh was yet between their teeth, ere it was chewed. This is very important. The wrath of the Lord was kindled against the people, and the Lord smote the people with a very great plague. And he called the name of that place Kibroth Hatava, because they buried the people that lusted. Martin, if this is the type, are we approaching an antitype?
No, we're already there.
We are in the antitype?
Yes.
Now, Martin, they're not yet in Canaan. They are on the way to Canaan. God had permitted them to indulge their bad diet, and it was not a test of fellowship.
No.
But now the conflict was going to come a little bit closer.
Mm-hmm.
And God said to them, consecrate yourselves.
Yes.
Consecrate yourselves. And the very worst of them, before they even swallowed it, so it wasn't the meat that killed them.
No, it didn't go off.
It was their craving
Yes.
that did something to them. A plague hit them, and they died. Martin, if the antitype is going to follow the type, then you're saying we are already there. When people that are supposed to know better but have rebelled against a known duty continue to do so,
Yes.
and many of them die in a plague, as it were, because this was not one of the last plagues.
No.
This was just a plague that struck the people.
Exactly.
It was a pandemic, in fact, that happened. Do you think it is possible that the survivors, who were equally gluttonous but didn't necessarily die while it was still between their teeth, will accuse the ones who are not partaking in this of being the ones that are causing the downfall?
Yes.
Didn't they accuse Moses of being the one who is the problem?
Yes. He led them in there to come and die, and now this is also probably his fault.
Do you think it could happen?
Yes.
And who is going to be the most vocal?
The people that eat the quails.
Correct. Now, is it only the people that eat the quails that necessarily can get sick, or do you think that others can also get sick?
You can also get sick.
Of course, they can also get sick.
But the difference is, like we've read earlier, when you do your known duty, then at least God can protect you through his angels and all of this. Where if you're not doing your duty, there's not even a possibility of it happening.
All right, let's put a curveball in here. Does the spirit of prophecy tell us that God will put many people, the elderly and even small children, to sleep, to spare them, particularly those that are not strong enough to go through the times that we are going towards? So it can be very confusing.
Exactly.
So there can be many people that are really walking in the will of God that in this kind of situation can be put to sleep.
Correct.
And that is a confusing issue.
It can be confusing, but I think that's when you have to remember the difference between Job and Moses. Who was the problem in Job's time?
It was Satan.
Yes. And in Moses' time, it was himself.
It was the people that were complaining.
Yeah.
So we will have this entire mix in the time that we are living, and people are dying. And there can be people that are totally consecrated that are dying, and people are wondering, why are they dying? Is our message wrong?
Yes.
But if we are fortified with the spirit of prophecy, and we understand that God is in his mercy putting some to sleep before the great confrontation, but many of the rebels, those who have neglected known duty, will also be put to sleep. And you have to be able to distinguish when you get confronted with these issues. Not an easy task.
No, because like you said, the ones that are doing the known duty will be accused.
They will be the ones that are being accused. And if we go to Psalm 78 verse 18, it says, and they tempted God in their heart by asking meat for their lust. That's the issue, Martin. Health reform is a very important component in this final great battle. Psalms 106, 14 and 15, but lusted exceedingly in the wilderness and tempted God in the desert. And he gave them their request, but sent leanness into their soul. This is the consequence, leanness and emptiness, an inability to discern. 1 Corinthians 10, now these things were our examples, to the intent that we should not lust of the evil things as they also lusted. Now, I can concur that people can say health reform is not the religion, but it's the right arm.
Yes.
And it's closely associated with the message. And it is not an unknown duty.
No.
It is a known duty.
Yes.
And it is perceived as a negative.
Correct.
When in actual fact it is a positive.
Yes.
And you will never know that it is a positive until you implement it.
And implement it correctly. For instance, I don't like to call it a vegan diet because there's other connotations. It's a plant-based whole food diet. But if you put it in this way, if you say no animal products, yeah, but Coca-Cola doesn't have any animal products. You can have a lot of bad food that you still eat.
Yes, pastries and lots of cakes and sugars and sweet things and all of those things.
Yeah.
All right. Health reform doesn't have to be austerity. You must enjoy your food. It must be a delight. You must delight yourself in the abundance that the Lord has supplied. And there are ways and means of preparing things which are delicious but nevertheless healthy.
Mm-hmm.
It takes effort. Just like your spiritual life requires effort,
Amen.
So your physical life also requires effort. If you snooze, you lose. If you don't use it, you lose it. It is like that in every aspect. So just to summarize, the health message is not the gospel, but it is the right arm of the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
It is a known duty. It is in fact a command of God. We have been asked to consecrate ourselves. We have been given an alternative lifestyle and an alternative medical instruction, which is sorely neglected in the times that we are living in. And we are following a typology to the T. And I am horrified to think that we are on the verge of the second part of that typology.
Yes.
And may God help us to be able to discern when these things happen, when people fall by your side and you are wondering what is happening even within our own ranks. May God give us wisdom to follow every known duty. Let's pray.
Amen.
Heavenly Father, it is a complex issue. And the physical cannot be separated from the spiritual, just like the arm cannot be severed from the body without great loss. Heavenly Father, give your people wisdom in the time that we are living in, and help us to steep ourselves in the Word of God and to partake daily of that light food, because your yoke is light, so that we may discern between right and wrong. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you for watching this video. To subscribe, click here. When the bell appears, click again to get notifications. To watch the next video, click here. Thank you.